Guys, all right, this is code red literally for the University of Nebraska. I woke up to this news and it said Big Ten coordinator expected to take job at Florida State. And I would have probably guessed 8 names before I guessed Tony White of Nebraska. We're going to talk about this from the Nebraska point of view because this is absolutely wild. I think it says a lot about the program of Nebraska. It says a lot about what's going on at Nebraska right now. So Tony White, last year, to give you some background, Tony White last year was expected to take he was in consideration for head coaching jobs at Syracuse. He was in consideration for also head coaching jobs at San Diego State. And Matt Rhule said, to Tony White, he's like, I really think that you should wait for the perfect opportunity for a head coaching job because you have a great thing here at Nebraska as a defensive coordinator. And Tony White agreed. And there are some seniors that are graduating this team. I mean, Luke Gifford, Ty Robinson, Tommy Hill's going to go on to the league. So there are some seniors that are leaving the University of Nebraska. But for Tony White, he basically is taking a defensive coordinator spot. I believe, guys, that Tony White, and this will probably never come out, okay, and it's probably not meant to ever come out, but this is what I really think is telling about this, is that Tony White took a defensive coordinator spot for a team that went 3-9 in the ACC in Florida State. So why would he take another defensive coordinator spot? And I looked at it. It's not like him and Norvell, I don't think, have crossed paths. So it's not like they might know each other from just being in the coaching industry. So they might be tight. They might text or call each other. But this is about Matt Rhule and Nebraska. This move right here is about the dysfunction of Nebraska football. Let's look at everything that has happened over the past 2 years. You have had Trev Alberts, who is the most cerebral, calm athletic director in the world, somebody that you would trust with just about everything in your family, somebody who seemed as rock solid as rock solid. He leaves Matt Rhule and goes to Texas A&M. You also have, in the middle of the summer, something incredibly wild happens at Nebraska, or not incredibly wild, just something that is unfortunate but strange nonetheless, is that John Cooper, the cornerbacks coach, he resigns. Now, I give credit to Matt Rhule. I give credit to the Nebraska media for the privacy in which they handled that situation, okay? I don't really want to dig in and out anybody, really, and I want Evan Cooper to get more chances to pursue his dreams, okay? But it's strange. And then they hired the cornerbacks coach from the Buffalo Bills, okay, to take over that unit. Tight ends coach, first year into the job, he was drinking and driving, got dismissed from the program. You've also had this year the dysfunction of Marcus Satterfield, and Tony White saw how Matt Rhule put in Dana Holgorsen. Also, this move also stems from, Iowa players saying that Matt Rhule did not shake their hands when Matt Rhule has always said, Joe Paterno, gentlemen coaches, I want to go to midfield. I want to shake hands with every single coach, every single player. I just think that Matt Rhule, the thing about Nebraska coaches, when you're a Nebraska football coach, is that you have to work like maybe twice or 5 times as hard as any other coach. Like, it's so demanding. So Matt Rhule is incredibly demanding on his coaches. And I think that wore out Tony White. Because Tony White's like a similar personality to Trev Alberts. He seems from the outside, and again, this is just speculation. It actually allows this video to be maybe more interesting and opinionated, the fact that I'm not entrenched in Nebraska. Because if I was, I would know more, but I would not share publicly my opinion. It's better that I don't know any of the real characters in this story. I really think that Matt Rhule, I just think that he wore on Tony White. And I also believe that maybe the treatment, it could be possible of Dylan Raiola. You now look at, why did Trev Alberts leave? Why did the cornerbacks coach resign? There's tons of dysfunction right now around Nebraska. And for Tony White to not stay as a defensive coordinator at Nebraska, where he's had 2 really great seasons, and he's rolling in this job. And this isn't a head coaching job. This is the same position as a defensive coordinator. Iowa has had the same defensive coordinator forever. Florida State had Adam Fuller for a really long time. Lincoln Riley had Grinch for a really long time. Jim Knowles is at Ohio State. Manny Diaz only left. Brent Pry only left Penn State. They only left Penn State because they got head coaching jobs. So similar to, it's maybe not the worst thing that Matt Rhule, works his coaches absolutely like tenfold, but there is so much turnover with Matt Rhule and this coaching staff, and this is a major blow for Nebraska. It's an incredible get for Florida State. Incredible. Tony White has been fantastic at his roles, really, at Nebraska, at Syracuse. Super cerebral guy. He reminds me of Dave Aranda at Baylor. And he adapts. He game plans. The players love him. This is a home run hire for Florida State. So maybe Tony White, to put Nebraska in the best light, maybe Tony White said, I love the chance to recruit down at Florida State. I think that there's more talent in Florida. I believe that the ACC might be easier to take over from a defensive perspective as the Big Ten Conference. And I really am going to like Florida State. So I like the recruiting. I think that the money, what also doesn't pass the smell test for why he leaves Nebraska, is the money is probably going to be just as good at the University of Nebraska. It really could be with Troy Dannon, with all of the money coming into the Big Ten. They have a bigger pool than ACC programs. So if Tony White loved it at Nebraska, I know that there's a lot of seniors that were leaving this team, but there must be something with either Raiola or Matt Rhule or the Raiolas that is just creating this toxic environment at Nebraska. And that's just my speculation, because Florida State, listen, Gus Malzahn, I didn't like that hire, but I really love this hire for Florida State. So I'm not against Florida State. Like, I like the Seminoles. I love the tradition of Florida State football. Okay, Mike Norvell's a really good guy. Again, I don't have a bias against Florida State, as some people would think I do with this channel. But really, this might speak to Matt Rhule, and this might speak to the turmoil that's going on maybe behind scenes at Nebraska, because Tony White, I consider them very close, Matt and Tony. And Tony was doing a fantastic job, and unless it was going to be a high-level Power 4 job, like West Virginia, Tony White, and he got paid more, it'd be like, okay, it's a tough job, West Virginia, but okay. If it was a big-time job, Tony White leaving for a head coaching job, okay, but this is a defensive coordinator position, and again, it's not like Florida State. I mean, no offense, it's not like they are completely undefeated, okay? They're not. They're facing 3-9 right now, so it's a total rebuild spot. Also, that defense needs to be rebuilt, just like Nebraska. Nebraska has a couple of good young pieces, but Nebraska's they're going to be recruiting defensive players, and frankly, the roster at Nebraska is easier to build defense with than Florida State. So it really doesn't pass the smell test, guys, if you're just being flat out honest. And it could have been the way like Satterfield was handled that Tony White didn't like. It could have been maybe the coaching hours at Nebraska are really, really intense. and it was waning on him. It was wearing on Tony White this entire process. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts, guys. I think that there's dysfunction with Matt Rhule and Nebraska. It's a great get for Florida State. An incredible get for the Seminoles here. And what do you guys make of this? Is stunning. This is absolutely stunning that Tony White leaves Nebraska as a defensive coordinator to go elsewhere as a defensive coordinator and to go to a 3-9 program where the coach is major on the hot seat, where the money you can make is absolutely equal, and where you have more stable footing, it appears, at Nebraska than Florida State. So it's a preferential working move, I believe, for Tony White, because I believe that I think that this is, again, I think it speaks volumes about Nebraska and things we might never hear about, and just the working environment being better at a place that Mike Norvell, I could just tell, he's more relaxed. He lets the coordinators do the work. He's calm. And that's what Tony White, I think, is seeking here.